There are many stories told about outhouses. They were such a part of life back in the day. And some of them are a little bit on the paranormal side. And I'd like to share one of those with you right now. And it's called The Cold Knock. It is told that out behind an old farmhouse stood a weathered little outhouse, leaning just a bit to one side. And folks said it was fine in the daylight, but after dark, no one dared to go there. Now, if you were unlucky enough to have to use it at night, just as you got settled down on the seat, comfy to do your business, you would hear it. 3 slow knocks from beneath the floorboards. Always 3, and always very steady. Some claimed it was the tree root shifting, others said rats, but one farmhand swore that he saw a pale hand push up through the cracks before the door slammed shut on its occupant. The outhouse still stands, though the boards are rotted and the pit now is long empty. But one still night, when the wind dies down, folks say you can still hear the knocking. You can still hear the knocking, as if it's waiting to grab you by the butt, I presume. I don't know. Interesting story. When I was a kid, my mom used to tell me a story about when her and my dad, not long after they were married, went up north to, I believe it was her aunt or maybe dad's aunt, probably dad's aunt, and uncle's farm. And they slept upstairs. And of course, for night use, there were chamber pots put under the bed. For those of you that don't know, a chamber pot is something when you didn't have indoor plumbing to have a bathroom at night, rather than going out to the outhouse way behind the house, you could use the chamber pot to do your business and then put the cover on it, take it out in the morning, empty it into the outhouse, and all was good. But my mom, God love her, was a little bit embarrassed to take the chamber pot downstairs. I don't know why. Everybody has to do their business, correct? Yes. And everybody knows the other person does their business. But she was embarrassed to. So she slid up the bedroom window. She slid up the screen. She took the chamber pot, hefted it, was ready to throw the contents out the window. The screen and window slid down, and the chamber pot crashed through the window, and the contents went all over, presumably down the side of the house. I think that her embarrassment at that probably would have been more than it would have been carrying that out to the outhouse. Forgive me for sharing that one, Mom, but it is a good one. Here's another outhouse story for you that goes over to the paranormal side. And this one is specifically from Michigan, and it's called The Whispering Hole. Okay. Michigan, during the logging day, was dotted with logging camps. I mean, they were all over the place, especially farther to the north, Saginaw on north. And there was an outhouse on the edge of an old logging camp, just a plain wooden box with a crescent moon carved in the door. And during the day, it was ordinary. Ordinary enough, anyways. But at night, specifically midnight, the men said it changed. If you were brave or foolish enough to sit at that hour, the pit below you would begin to whisper. Not the wind, not echoes, but voices, soft hissing voices that rose from the dark, calling your name. Well, one logger claimed he stayed too long, and the whispers grew louder, circling around him until he felt hot breath on the back of his neck. He ran out barefoot across the pine needles and sharp stones, and he never, ever went back in that outhouse. The outhouse was torn down long ago, but locals say if you stand in the clearing at midnight and listen closely, you can still hear the whispers on the warm night air. What think you? True or false? Who knows? This next image reminds me of my dad, as he used to tell me when I was younger about what Halloween was like when he was a kid. And he said that he and his friends would often upset outhouses. They would put outhouses in very peculiar places, and sometimes even people were locked in the outhouse. And sometimes a cherry bomb was thrown down the pit, and him and his friends would run, and it would explode, and all the mess from up underneath would blow up into the outhouse. And when whoever had to use it next was in for a real, well, not really charming time. So this next one reminds me of that. When I was just a kid, say in the mid to late 1960s, my family often vacationed at Outhouse Lake here in northeast Michigan, and it was a fun time, always. But it was very rustic and rural. And one of the things that you had to put up with was an outhouse. Well, nobody liked the outhouse, except for me, and I am kind of weird, you have to admit. The outhouse smelled awful. It was full of wasp nests, but it had old comic books. But the downside was they were love stories. It was always hot in there, just steamy hot and stinky. A lot of old stuff stored in there, all kinds. Night visits were extremely unpleasant. There were spiders, and big spiders everywhere. But I liked the place because there I knew I could take comic books, read, and not be bothered, because nobody else really wanted to be on there unless it was a dire emergency.